Mastodon with Emperor of Sand. Now, we're about to enter into April, which means that we're 3 full months into the year, and Mastodon, anytime that they have an album that's in the queue, especially one that's this early in the year, would and should dominate headlines. Now, that probably would have been true had we not witnessed essentially the implosion of Suicide Silence, which definitely stole a lot of headlines away. But this was an album that has had a lot of conversation that has been brought upon it, and one that has had some changes that have occurred. For one, we initially thought this may be a double album, which it is not, but at the same time it still has the power and significance that has been alluded to through some of the interviews of the past. This is one that essentially has a real allusion to cancer and to really some of the disease that band members, family members have gone throughout their lives, and especially throughout the past couple of years. They instead are able to metaphorically channel this into somebody who is given essentially a death sentence, a desert traveler, and that's why we get the Emperor of Sand name. So it's a nice little way to sort of connect the two and try to not, just spell out something and smack a listener in the face with perhaps something that would be blatantly obvious. So this 11-track affair is one that has sort of the chemical makeup of Mastodon releases of the past couple of years, such as The Hunter or Once More Round the Sun. We do have a lot of 4-minute tracks that are being framed around some of the center points of the album. In this case, it's tracks such as Steam Breather or Roots Remain, which are able to go past the 5-minute mark, especially with Roots Remain going 6.5 minutes. And then, of course, we have our big tailor-made finale, really boasting the most significant potential and longest runtime, with Jaguar God in this case running at nearly 8 minutes. And we also know that Mastodon is very masterful whenever it comes to framing an album and piecing an album together to ensure that that puzzle makes a lot of sense and doesn't feel like much weakness exists. So already going in, these are things that it's almost like watching somebody do the same thing over and over again. There are consistencies that you expect to always be present, and it's very true on this album, so there's no real need to fully reiterate that until we summarize it at the end. But Sultan's Curse we heard, and was a single that some people had really construed as a bit weak, but as an opener for this album, it definitely established themology and gives it a little sense of heaviness right out of the gate. This is an album that does not necessarily stick with that heaviness quotient at all times, or necessarily exudes a heavy metal veneer at all times. There's a rock side that is possessed with this that does have a bit of that sort of pseudo-stoner element to it, or that pseudo, Southern image to it. This is definitely one where influence can be taken from previous affairs. They do have a little bit of barrenness or even some neurosis that's thrust upon them, just in the way in which they're able to really use their talents and their skills in order to really progress forward. I like the fact that the tone of this is quickly, maintaining itself with the tracks such as Show Yourself directly afterward, and really, from a theme standpoint, it's something where you start to wonder what's wrong, and you want the problem to sort of just display itself if you want to take things on a very literal level. On a storyline concept, it's a very different idea. I'm going to allow most of you to figure that out for yourselves. Going into Precious Stones and Steam Breather, this is where you can almost tell that the tone is shifting a little bit more toward the idea of trying out cure, either that or going through process that's trying to alleviate some of the problems that exist. So you're already seeing, just by basing a little bit of literal translation to what we're getting in this figurative sense on this album of what the theme is really all about. And the cool thing about this is that I love how this album's tone, while it still has a bit of that rock and roll feel with that metal, I love the fact that these vocals continue to just feel extremely honest, and not to mention very dynamic. We have that mid-range that sometimes escalates into the high. We have this sort of tri-vocal attack that sometimes becomes a quad attack whenever they decide to harmonize. And overall, the strength of the songwriting continues to be one of Mastodon's crowning achievements thus far. Whenever you get into Steam Breather and Roots Remain, you start to notice a bit of a shift in the overall way in which these songs are being presented, with the 3 and 4 minutes tracks having a little bit more of that mid-tempo pacing to it, something that can easily transition into something a tad bit more aggressive. Meanwhile, these other songs, these longer tracks, are able to explore some of their softer, more melody-driven material that really offers that sense of balance between both of the sides that Mastodon possess. Whenever you consider an album such as Crack the Sky, or even some elements of Blood Mountain, or even combine those two ideas together, and then thrust in a little bit of the once more round the sun philosophy, you do get something that's brand new, and you do get something that does exhibit itself a little bit more on Emperor of Sand than, say, the savagery of Leviathan, either that or the sort of clustered nature that the Hunter was able to possess. Going on to the second half of this album, this is where things and the tone gets a little bit louder. You get a little bit more aggressiveness whenever you go past Roots Remain. Word to the Wise and the Ancient Kingdom both really possess this nicely, with Ancient Kingdom clocking in at nearly 5 minutes in length. And then you like the fact that it's a track such as Andromeda doesn't necessarily absolutely need to exude some sort of like space-driven theme, but instead uses atmosphere and uses its own sort of tempered approach in order to really paint a little bit more of a worldly or an ethereal vision. Based off of that, Andromeda certainly stands as an early highlight of the second half of this disc, and I say that basically because of what Jaguar God is able to accomplish. We know that Mastodon are very good at giving us something to go home with, and Jaguar God may actually be the most perfect representation of that, considering what it accomplishes. The song is essentially meant to showcase death and rebirth at the same time. And Jaguar God does that, considering it does have moments of softness that could almost indicate transition, either that or indicate that moment where we leave this world and transition into a spacey aura that we have no idea where it's at or what it really means. But at the same time, it does have some of that trademark aggressiveness, and it shows that Mastodon, whenever they write a lengthier song, whenever they go close to that 8-minute mark, which was proven once again on the aforementioned Crack the Sky with 2 10-minute tracks, they really have the chance to impress. I would love to see this band really go back to some of that Crack the Sky songwriting, and especially on an album like this, I thought it was a perfect opportunity to do that, and Jaguar God kind of accomplishes that, but I would have loved to see them go a little bit more full tilt with it. But either way, Jaguar God shows that whenever this band steps back and writes something that completes every aspect of their sound, that really throws and thrusts in everything that they have to offer, they shine, and they shine bright, considering the guitar fade that you get at the end of Jaguar God is nothing short of magical. You love that spacey middle portion. It really makes the sort of framework work a little bit better. The sort of circular nature of the song feel a little bit more real. And they can jam out just the same way that they can slow it down. So Jaguar God is certainly the true highlight for me. I love this track a lot. It was definitely one that left me going home happy. And it's one that really completes the story in a nice way. Overall, this album does have some shortcomings, but has a lot of positives to really talk about. For one, as we said, Mastodon knows how to frame an album. They know how to piece it together, and that's true with this disc. So you're not going to feel like there's any real lull. Some folks may be a little bit disappointed because they continue to evolve instead of staying in one place for far too long. This does feel like it does measure up alongside of 2010's albums such as The Hunter and Once More Around the Sun, but it feels like some natural evolution. I don't know if this is an album that you can compare with those very successfully, considering the theme nature of this disc. But overall, it's still a 24 out of 30, a very strong album that does show that Mastodon continues to impress and continues to enthrall heavy metal fans. It gives people something to look forward to from this band, and those who are big time Mastodon supporters should really dig this album and love the way that they're able to sort of transition in a little bit of that personal feel and lace it throughout this entire album to give it a little bit of an additional personal charm. But I want to know what you guys think about Emperor of Sand by Mastodon. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and all through the month of April, there's going to be a 50-50 charity stream that's going to be going on intermittently. The benefit is for One of a Kind Pets, which is a no-kill animal shelter that is located in Akron, Ohio. So if you really got this whole idea of death and rebirth and, you know, how terrible things can sometimes be from listening to Emperor of Sand, you may want to toss a donation to this cause, considering they are taking animals that are on the kill lists of other shelters and giving them a second chance. And really, the rebirth idea behind Jaguar God is similar to a second chance. There's links in the description box for how you can do that. If you do decide, please accept my thanks, because this is a huge cause. There's going to be streams that have prizes, awards are definitely going to come out. It's going to be right here on YouTube, so you'll want to subscribe. That way you get those notifications. I'm coverkillernation. Let me know your thoughts on this album, or if you have any other questions in the comments below. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.